It's the Year of the Garden, and where better to celebrate than Victoria, BC, the city of gardens.
Recorded on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen and Wasanich nations, this series examines local history, culture, and ecology over a nice cup of tea.
So put the kettle on and join us.
Welcome to Tea and Gardens.
Today we're at the gardens at HCP, Horticulture Centre of the Pacific. This site contains over 30 different gardens, as well as a tea house called Charlotte and the Quail, which is named after the garden's resident cat.
We'll be exploring the gardens, as well as learning how to make a home-brewed tea from things that you can collect in your own garden. So come join us.
This garden started, it was basically a vision of, some volunteers that wanted to create sort of a hub of horticulture and, a center in Victoria that taught people how to garden.
Linda Petit has been the head gardener at HCP since 2013, and she was kind enough to show us around.
This is the rhododendron garden. It's in its prime. You've got the right day for it. Yeah, the volunteers that look after this garden are part of the Vancouver Island Rhodo Club, so the Rhodo Society, and they come in every Wednesday and volunteer. They set their flower buds in the summer for the next spring to bloom. So if it's too cold, the flower buds get killed off.
You mentioned they were blooming a little bit later this year,
Yes,
maybe?
I feel that the weather's been cooler. I feel in general we're about 3 weeks behind. Like we sort of keep records every year. We kind of know when the camas bloom or when the apple trees are blooming. And it seems to me like we're about 3 weeks behind.
Yeah. So in terms of things that draw people to this garden, do you find that the rhododendrons are a big draw?
I think so, but I think in general, of course, it depends on what time of year people are coming to the garden. The big thing in the winter, when everything looks sort of, kind of green and not much color, we have a winter garden. It's called the Doris Page Winter Garden. And that's the showcase probably from December till, I'd say, early April.
What's in the winter garden?
It's beautiful. I'm not sure if you know about Doris Page.
No, that was going to be my
I'll tell
follow-up
you who
question.
she is. Yeah, she was a gardener, obviously, a trained horticulturalist from Britain, and she came to Vancouver Island, and she realized how we could actually garden here year-round. One of the few, probably the only place in Canada where we can say we can do that. And she also, her claim to fame was bringing hellebores to Vancouver Island. And the best part about them is they're deer resistant, which is really important for people these days. So she brought, hellebores, and she had a local gardening show, and she was, I think, the president of the Victoria Hort Society. So she brought a lot, to Vancouver Island to teach people that we can garden year round and be proud of it.
That's great. And she has her own garden here.
Yeah, she's since passed away, but the garden is named after her. And yeah, I guess she had an amazing garden at home as well. Yeah. We can go down. We have a couple of veggie food growing gardens. One particular where the students look after, if you'd like to see that.
Yeah, definitely.
This is called the Urban Garden. I'm not sure if you're aware, but part of the HCP, we have a Pacific Horticultural College here. So we offer a 10-month program where we have students take the program. They graduate with a certificate in horticulture, and it starts in January and they graduate in November. So part of the program is they take what's called an introduction to growing food, and it's near and dear to my heart because I teach it to them. So I actually quite enjoy it. And of course, they get to eat what they grow, and that's what they really like. So we have a lot of youth programs here and family programs. So we always laugh and say we start gardeners young. And it's amazing. I've seen them come in at, 5 years old, and they're just so happy to see a worm in the soil or plant a bean and watch it grow. It's a great way to start. So this is sort of the entrance to the urban garden. Last year, as part of actually, we just created this garden. It's been a year and a half now, but we made raised beds. Of course, the students built them as part of a hardscape project. And we just wanted to demonstrate to people that you can make any, gardens out of a lot of different material. We used cedar. If you look over, we used cinder blocks for one of the beds. The other bed is actually rock that's been cemented in. So we just wanted to show, the options when you are gardening. But this is actually a living willow arch, and it was a fun project we did last year. We grow the willow here on site, so we just cut the rods when they were dormant. And we made a trench, of course, and planted them into the ground, and then we just wove them to make the arch. And of course, willow takes a lot of water, so during the summer we have to keep watering it. But otherwise, it just basically leafed out, and now we're just going to trim it to keep it the shape we want. But it's just sort of a nice feature, sort of as the entrance to the garden. And nice because it's all made with, products that we have here growing.
Do you find that a lot of people come to that course specifically because they're trying to learn how to live more sustainably?
I think that's huge these days, yeah. Not just with this course, but with even community education. We notice a lot of people are taking courses. People, honestly, they just want to grow their own food, especially now with the cost of food. It's pretty much outrageous. And also, if you have a climate where you can grow, even things like greens all winter long, why not take advantage of it? It's such a huge thing for people to be sustainable. We also teach about composting, which is important. The other things we do with sustainability, we have green machinery. So we have machinery that's not all powered. It's actually battery operated. So we have mowers that are battery operated and string trimmers that the students learn about. And also we even, encourage them to carpool or bicycle to school if you can. So all those things are, so important to people these days.
Do you find that gardening has a mental health benefit?
Oh, for sure. There's no doubt about it. And I'm sure there's studies been done. I know there has. It's something about when you put your hands in the soil and just feel the soil, it just makes you feel good. It sort of takes the stress away. And even in a green space, you can see people, that live in a busy, hectic city. If you can go for 10 minutes and sit on a park bench, with nature and listen to birds, it's got to be a good calming effect and good for your health.
I see it as a spiritual practice, like an earth-based spiritual practice,
totally.
Which is never going to be a hurtful thing to have.
No, for everybody, for all ages. You're absolutely right.
How would you reflect on having a job here?
I often think about when I come into this setting every day, even if you think, oh God, things aren't going right in life, or, you're mad about something or whatever. What a beautiful setting to have is your office. It's really hard to stay angry for too long. It's amazing, and it changes, of course, with the seasons, but it's just such a beautiful spot to be. And especially, we noticed when COVID hit and we were open again to the public, people came here because it was a safe place to come. And you could just sit and reflect and listen to nature and just enjoy, a safe place to be.
Linda took us to the Moon Bridge in the Takata Garden.
A volunteer named Bob Clark, who's still alive but no longer volunteering, he had this vision to create this garden. And he was amazing. He had, I think, a couple of friends who knew about Japanese gardens or had an interest in it, and they basically created it by hand. And he went out and did fundraising on his own to get donors to donate to create this garden. So it's pretty amazing, really. And it's a beautiful setting all year long.
That's beautiful. It's a real testament to the power of community.
Exactly. Yeah, so true.
So we're standing in front of what looks to be a new building.
Yes, it is. It's our newest building here. We're still in the Japanese Takata Garden, but this is actually a repurposed building. It was an authentic Japanese tea house for many years here, but we didn't have many ceremonies. It wasn't used that often, and it was starting to fall apart. So the volunteer construction group and the Takata Garden volunteers came up with this sort of design, we'll call it. And it's just now a sitting area. It's a place for people to come and sit and enjoy the view out of the sun or the rain. And it's just a lovely, peaceful setting.
So nice. The wood is beautiful.
Yeah, it's cedar wood, and the benches are made from arbutus. We're going to have the construction volunteers who built it and the garden volunteers, the Takata volunteers, join us with the Takata family, who's Dylan Takata, who's the grandson of the Takatas. And we're going to basically have an opening, sort of a celebration for the new building.
Linda invited us to return to the Takata Garden for the inauguration, so we were fortunate to meet Dylan and discuss his family legacy.
So we were invited here today here at the Horticulture Centre of the Pacific to see this beautiful new structure that the team of volunteers here has created. This garden was built sort of in tribute to the garden that my family used to operate at the Gorge Park, and this place, I believe, was built sometime in the mid-1990s and in honor of the original Gorge Park Gardens, and our family has maintained quite a strong connection to this place. We come back here on a regular basis. My wife Lisa and I got married here back in 2016 or 2017. Neither of us can ever really remember. So yeah, it's a place that continues to hold great meaning for us. So it was wonderful to be invited out today to see this new structure they've created. So they've entitled this building Miharashidai, which I'm not a native Japanese speaker by any means, but is meant to be a place where you can sort of be up on an elevated position and appreciate the view. I think it's one of the most beautiful spots in the garden where you can appreciate the vista, and I hope that people will enjoy this, for many years to come.
Thank you so much to Dylan for speaking with us. For more information on the history of the Takata family, check out our episode on the Japanese gardens at Gorge Park. But for now, let's get back to Linda for a tour of the Husanich Ethnobotany Trail. So we're here surrounded by all these beautiful blooming camas and red columbine. Could you tell us where we are right now?
Yes, we're in the Gary Oak Meadowflower Garden. It's sort of the last part of the Ethnobotany Trail. And you're right, it's in its glory right now. It looks beautiful.
And how long have you had the Ethnobotany Trail?
Actually, that's one of our more recent gardens, probably 2 years. I think it just started just before COVID, so probably a couple of years now we've been open to the public, and people love to come and see it. I mean, the signs are absolutely amazing. So this one here we can look at, it's red columbine, which of course you see just starting to bloom here. But these signs are absolutely stunning. They were made by local artist Sarah Jim. And she's done an amazing job throughout all the ethnobotany trails. She's made the signs. They're absolutely stunning.
We agree and are delighted that Sarah also created our Tea and Gardens logo. Sarah Jim is a Coast Salish artist whose designs complement her work in ecological restoration. The signs she created show native plants alongside their names in English, Latin, and most prominently, Sanchothan. We asked Linda about the importance of representing Indigenous art and language on the trail.
For us, it's important because they're the founders of this land. This is their land. They're the people who were here well before we were. And also for us and everybody, I think everybody's just so interested to learn more about it. And also not just native plants, but what the uses of these plants were for. It's amazing. I just think about all the things they use for, some things which we would look at now and say, oh, that's a weed, who wants that in your garden? It meant a lot to, First Nations people. So I think it really is a valuable thing for all of us to learn and to respect.
So everything on this trail is native to the area?
That's correct.
How does that affect the wider ecosystem of this garden?
I think it's very important. I mean, I feel especially now with climate change, people and also deer problems, people are looking more for native plants. But I think it's really important just because these are the plants that have grown here for years and they've obviously adapted to the climate. So hopefully they'll be the ones to carry on.
Linda was such a gracious host. After our tour, she took us to Charlotte and the Quail to meet the owner, Hayley Rosenberg. She first opened a restaurant here called Nourish, which now has a location in downtown Victoria. The cafe at HCP became a tea house, and we asked her how she chose the name.
You want to go to the veggie garden? Charlotte and the Quail, because we're on Quail Road, and Charlotte is a huge part of our lives. She really does give us so much joy. One of the ways that I have learned more about nature and the power of it is my time witnessing the seasons, but beyond that, being able to understand the edible aspect of it and then see, a kale come from a little tiny start into this thing that I actually kind of get excited when things bolt, because then you get the edible flowers and then you get to see the bees and get to eat the delicious little shoots on them. So for me, I think the flowers and putting intentional beauty onto every single plate, but beyond that, appreciating that beauty in the moment that you're putting it on the plate. It's almost kind of selfish a little bit, but then that person who's receiving it also is just beyond. So I think that is our genuine secret ingredient, and I just love edible flowers. So maybe we can do a little bit of a tour of a couple ones that exist right now that we aren't necessarily going to be using, but that are just so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what drives you to use particular ones? Is it color or is it more about flavor palettes?
So the beautiful part about nature is it works with itself in a symbiotic sort of way. And so if you're using seasonal foods at certain times of year, you're using seasonal flowers at certain times of year. There definitely is magical aspects to different flowers. Some have more meaning than others do. And so that's kind of a fun little part, is to kind of like see what your heart needs or your body needs at a certain moment in time. But really, it's just about the pop of color, especially at this time of year, because we're still, we're coming into like lots of greens, which is so nice. But to have yellow flower or purple flower on the plate as well is I don't know, it's pretty amazing. I have the category of sweet flowers, neutral flowers that you can just put everywhere on anything. And I kind of put kale flowers in that category. And then ones that have like a savory flavor that definitely influence a dish as well. So, yeah. So the kale flowers are just so great. And even the shoot tops right now are just so delicious. I have a hard time picking the shoot tops because I know they're going to be flowers at one point in time. And then another one that I just think is just so incredible. And these do, like, I wouldn't put these on desserts or cakes necessarily. Maybe sometimes, but they're fava bean flowers. And so there'll be fava beans at some point in time, but they're just like, the intricacy of nature is just like genuinely mind-boggling to me. And then, I don't know, these little flowers are just so beautiful. So we've got bronze fennel. We're going to harvest some of these fronds. So once you get to know your flavors of the garden and in your herbs and veggies, and you can kind of play while you're in it when you're trying to create an experience in your kitchen. So I know that the fennel is kind of got a licoricey sort of flavor, and the sweet cicely is just magical and also has kind of like a licoricey flavor. So I think we're going to run with like a good licorice sort of note. So the sweet cicely, you can eat the whole plant. When you harvest, particularly like really the stems or the fronds off of anything, you want to make sure that you're clipping just before where there's two nodes coming out. So you want to pick just above where there's two more pieces coming out. Couple of the flowers.
I can smell the licorice now.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to take some of these seeds because they actually are full of flavor. So we'll put those into our steep. The idea is to not know that you were here, basically. And then you know you haven't picked too much. And that you've picked it probably properly, too. Okay. So yeah, with this kind of stuff, we would use this as garnish. We're going to use it in a steep today, but we could also put it, like I said, into a honey and infuse a honey or infuse salts. You'd want to dry it out first. Or oils as well. And those are really great ways to just transcend time, really. This is a rosemary bush. Rosemary is just such a beautiful flavor, and I think it works really well with sweet and savory dishes, but it does take over a dish, and that's why we're going to use it in the steep, is because we actually want to have flavor, so it's actually a benefit right now. But if you are putting it into anything, you really want to taste the flower first, just to kind of get an idea of like how much it's going to take over the situation. So I'm just going to take the blooms, some of them.
Once Haley had collected a nice bowl full of fresh ingredients from the garden, she took us back to Charlotte and the quail to prepare the tea.
So I've got my pot of hot water, my fresh herbs and flowers, some lemon and honey just to balance out flavor and bring a lot of brightness and joy. I mean, who doesn't love honey? And I'm just going to put everything in the pot and let it steep a little while. I'm going to save some of these flowers for just to float on top of the tea afterwards, because that's kind of fun. So I'm just going to put everything in to the hot water.
How long will it steep for?
Usually about 5 minutes. You can let it, you can let it steep and have it right away, or, oh, there's a little guy right there. He's running for his life. And have it right away, or you can put it into a jar of cold water even, and put it out into the sunshine and let it steep a day or two. And then you have sun tea. And that's supposed to be quite powerful, like the sun. So I'll let that do its thing. And I guess this is where like just the time for yourself or time with a friend really comes into the equation, you know, as just taking that moment to recognize that you can be quiet and it's okay. It's actually really good for you. It's always nice to kind of notice what's happening, like the little ant on the table, which I'm just gonna let do its thing. And the aroma that's coming from this, which actually smells really amazing, and I think is going to be so delicious with this lemon. I'm actually going to put a couple of these lemon slices into the tea.
So what would you say is your personal relationship with tea?
I think it's fun. First of all, it's not like coffee where you don't get that much of a variation. You know, I love going into my tea cupboard and thinking about how I feel at that moment and what I need to play with in order to uplift me or soften me or just cradle me. You know, sometimes tea can do that for you too. So I actually really enjoy the aspect of it being an interaction. And, you know, with tea, I think one of the best parts about tea too is like the afterwards. So I don't think that's been 5 minutes, and we're probably not fully doing justice. Honestly, the longer the better when it comes to steeping. But a little taste just to see where things are going. And the thing is too, like if you don't have a ton of herbs, you can always play a little bit with the lemon and the honey to make more flavor, or you can add a couple tea bags of herbal tea or black tea. I mean, really a black tea in this would be so delicious as well. But yeah, there's some flavor coming through for sure.
It smells divine, I have to say.
It does. So I think, you know, I think it's just such a shame that we would leave these herbs in the pot. And so I'm going to suffer through, we're all going to suffer through sipping through the herbs as well. I'm going to put a little bit into every cup because I just think they're so pretty. There we go. I'm trying to get some flowers out, but we'll do a squeeze of lemon in each. And the donating of teacups lives on. We just got these a couple weekends ago from somebody who wanted to pass them along to us, which is really special. We, over time, get so many beautiful gifts, really, of people who just want to share cups that they no longer use in their home with people who will enjoy them. And then, of course, a little flour to float and a little drizzle of honey. And call us nourished.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. That's good. Very lot of it.
I like chunks.
Yeah, and like even just tasting those, tasting some of the chunks afterwards. It's good.
A little roughage. It's nice.
Little roughage is good.
Yeah,
It's good for the soul.
definitely.
We want to express our gratitude to Linda, Haley, and the entire team at HCP.
Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.